For the intents and purposes of this assignment, I'd like to focus specifically on the methodology used in this study. Participants included 273 African American adolescent girls with an average age of 15.83 years old, and participants were selected from the Flint Adolescent Study in Flint, Michigan. Participants completed a structured face-to-face interview for 60 minutes at school or in a community setting with one of 6 trained interviewers. Post-interview participants completed self-administered paper and pencil questionnaires that asked sensitive information regarding sexual risk behaviors. It is important to note that the University Institutional Review Board approved all study protocols and participants were compensated for their time. To identify sexual risk behaviors, a 6-point Likert type scale was used where participants reported the number of experiences of sexual intercourse they had in their lifetime. Such statistics were also considered to include the frequency of condom use during those sexual intercourse experiences. The frequency of violence exposure was assessed using a scale measuring one's exposure to violent victimization and observation. Participants responded on a 5-point Likert scale, and items were averaged to generate a violent exposure score for each participant. The participants' involvement with organized religious activities was assessed using 2 items. The first item measured the frequency of service attendance. The second item measured the number of religious activities with which the participant reported involvement. Some of those activities included choir, church greeter, usher, etc. The frequency of service attendance and the number of activities were then averaged to approximate the level of religious involvement. Although some research has suggested that peer or near-peer mentoring interventions can also be effective, this study was interested in understanding the potential effects of intergenerational mentoring, where participants were asked to identify a non-parental adult mentor aged 25 years or older who would be willing to mentor them for that year. To this end, a 3-way interaction between violence exposure, organizational religious involvement, ORI, and natural mentorship was tested. This analytic approach was reflective of the risk protective model of risk and resilience, Zimmerman, 2013. To interpret the 3-way interaction, the effect of violence exposure on sexual risk behaviors was estimated across combinations between low, moderate, and high levels of ORI, and between no natural mentor and a natural mentor identified. This study emphasized the need for societal interventions and policies that address the roots of community violence, such as improving the built environment and dismantling policies that reinforce residential and other forms of segregation. It is clear that interventions are needed to reduce Black girls' exposure to violence and victimization, as opposed to just identifying factors that promote resilience in the face of that risk. It is noteworthy that natural mentors play a central role in enhancing the protective effects and organizational religious involvement. In addition, these findings may be helpful for community youth workers who work to promote positive health and developmental trajectories for African American adolescent girls. Community youth workers, spiritual practitioners, teachers, community members, elders, and others could incorporate these findings into school curriculum, Sunday school curriculum, community and social programming, etc., to empower and support youth to identify sources of healthy relationships both with peers and with natural mentors. This concludes the methodology.